Trebuchet is a very versatile and powerful item with a great build path. I'm currently Kevin, and today I will give you all the information you need to master this incredibly strong build. With the increased tempo of some of the other heroes, namely Dooley, Vanessa is starting to lose some of the early and mid-game dominance that she has enjoyed for such a long time. This is making things much tougher, as you can't just put a decent early game together and skip straight to the late game. You need to continue improving your build throughout the mid game in order to not lose every single fight, which makes transitioning into the late game also a lot more difficult. Good thing that Trebuchet is a mid-game powerhouse and has a fantastic transition into Vanessa's most powerful build, which is the powder keg. Let me explain how this build works. Trebuchet charges whenever you use a weapon or haste. So, small fast weapons and items that haste often are exactly what we're looking for. Some standout items with Trebuchet are Zoracid, holsters, shot glasses, dive weights, jellyfish, but there's an almost unlimited amount of combinations, which makes Trebuchet such a powerful build. You can go full weapon, you can go full haste, but usually you are looking for a combination of both, especially since items have a ICD, or internal cooldown, which means that even if you have infinite haste procs, the Treb will only charge once every 0.2 seconds. So there is a thing as too much haste. This is where a combination of haste and weapons is extremely valuable, since weapon procs count separately from haste procs, allowing you to somewhat bypass the internal cooldown and charge incredibly fast. A little bit later I want to show you some example boards and how varied the Trebuchet build can be, but for now let's look at how you get the items you want first. Trebuchet starts at bronze, so you can find it really early by visiting Barcoon, Ayla, Mistworth or JJ. However, as you can see, the chances are not super amazing. This is because of Trebuchet's tags, and it doesn't really have specialized shops until some of the later days with Pol and Hef. However, you still have a decent chance of finding Trebuchet early, and since Treb wants many activators, you don't really want to play it on day one if you can help it. For early supporting items, Zoracid is definitely your bread and butter and probably the most powerful item. It charges off of burn, it is a weapon, and it hastes twice. You can pick it up really early and will most likely stay with you until the late game. Because you want to use Zoracid, Jellyfish can become a good option as well. This also makes Narwhal a great option as a fast weapon that will also charge Jellyfish on the other side, because it's aquatic. As you can see, things just kind of fall into place. This is what happens a lot with this build. Zoracid, Jelly and Narwhal also have a lot of the same shops, so you can find them together a lot. Dive weights and pufferfish are also good options to pair with the Jellyfish, or like a piano potentially. And now that you have a bunch of aquatic items, Beach Ball becomes a really solid early pickup. And of course any low cooldown weapons will be great. This is just one small package that you can get really early, but at the end of the video I will show you some board states and explain exactly how they work and how I got them. Now speaking of low cooldown weapons, there are some fantastic monsters that give you lower cooldown weapons than you can normally buy. I won't go over every monster that might have some useful things for the build, since there's a lot of variety in the build, but low cooldown weapons can almost always find a spot. Now Hoverbike Hooligan on day 3 and Weapons Platform on day 9 can get you an Uzi, which is fantastic. There are a lot of opportunities to get fangs. Toxic Fang, Shiny Fangs, Obsidian Fangs. Sabertooth is especially good with the Shiny Fang. But there are plenty of opportunities to pick up a Fang. You can also get a Fang from Curio. And at day 3 you have a Street Gamer for Yo-Yo as well. Also at day 3 you have a Ventriloquist, which is quite difficult but can give you a friendly doll. Now another monster to look for is Eccentric Aetheryte for the Rig skill, which is absolutely nuts. In general, but especially for Trebuchet because it hastes all of your items. Weapons Platform also has an amazing skill, Distributed Systems, that haste your small items when you use a large item. At day 10 and beyond you also have Awakened District with Trickle Down Economics, hasting all your other items every time you use a large item. Both of these skills will make sure your Treb is always firing and can be run winning. Now, before we look at board states, I want to talk about transitioning a little bit. Trebuchet is a powerful mid-game build, but it doesn't really scale super well into the late game. You can get 10 wins with it, but you basically can't lose a single fight, or you need some skill that will carry you into the late game. So most of the time you do want to transition. As I said before, you probably want to go for the powder keg build if you can. And since you're probably going a Trebuchet build pretty early, you have plenty of time to be on the lookout for a powder keg. You want to try and get a keg before level 7, since then you can use the silver upgrade to get your keg from silver to gold. Now if you can find a Hef, it has a very high chance of giving you a powder keg. But Ayla and Mittel have decent chances as well. And you want to visit Barcoon and Quixel for your other support items, so you can also find a keg there. The beautiful thing about Trebuchet is that you can use powder keg in the Trebuchet build, even if your keg is not diamond or critting. Trebuchet burns a lot and likes ammo items like revolver, dive weights, shot glasses and more. Combine that with heated shells and your keg will go off in no time, while your Trebuchet and other items will do the rest of the damage. As an extra bonus, the Expedition is amazing for powder keg, since it gives you a high chance for obsidian, burn or poison enchants, on top of the level 10 enchant that you get along the way, giving you a very high chance of getting something useful for your keg. Now, I've spoken about keg a lot in the previous videos, so I want to keep it short, but incendiary rounds and heated shells are key. Get heated shells from C4 and incendiary rounds from cold, and then burn as much as you can, with burn items and ammo items. Now on screen are some examples for a finished keg build, which will go off in under 4 seconds if you have all the items, so anything slower than that is not useful, something like dive weights. If you use keg without the Trebuchet, you definitely want to make sure it can one-shot. You can use Radiant for multiple keg hits as well, but that's pretty rare. This means you want a combination of obsidian, diamond keg and crit. The Lord of the Waste skill with its double crit damage will also help a lot if you don't have a diamond keg, but you can crit. Now here I want to show you some of the board states of the different Trebuchet builds that you can go. First, I have a Shark Claw. I got lucky and picked up an Uzi. I got the Fang from either a monster or Curio. And as you can see, the Shark Claw is already doing great, but the Trebuchet really tops it off. I end up going for skills, which are very useful, especially with a weapon Trebuchet build. And I managed to pick up a Golden Steel Storm, which is incredible. This means I want to go full weapon Trebuchet. As you can see by the board state, I ditched the Shark Claw because we have enough damage, and I went for holsters to get us started much earlier. I also pick up an upgrade from the Steel Storm since I only have 4 skills and I got the skill upgrade vendor. Now as you can see, I still have a powder keg and I'm still building towards it, just in case the trap doesn't kill right away and I might need to transition. But the Diamond Steel Storm and an Obsidian Trebuchet will be enough to close out the game for a perfect 10 win. So this is a great example of what Trebuchet can do if you get the right skills. You don't need to transition, you can just build weapons and there you go. Next up is a slightly different variety. This is the Saurosid Jellyfish Narwhal Beach Ball build, which is something you'll encounter quite often. Since Saurosid is such a powerful item, you almost always want to pick it up. As you can see, I end up going Water Wheel, which is a pretty good item, but it's quite large, so you might want to replace it with something better. But it definitely works for the early and the mid game. Now, I end up picking up a Tortuga, which will help me with doing some extra damage since Trebuchet won't always do all of the damage you need. Now the Tortuga variant can be quite useful. At that point you do want to upgrade the Tortuga because it gets double damage and the upgrades on Trebuchet, while okay, are not super fantastic. And as you can see at day 8, while it did get some extra wins along the way, it is just no longer powerful enough. Which means it's time to transition over Powder Keg, which is something you always want to go for if you can. Now I did manage to get the Expedition, and I ended up getting a Darkstone Engine, which normally is not that useful, but there were no better options and I already had an Obsidian Keg, so I ended up using it. It gives a lot of multicast and only has a 5-second cooldown. Combined with the Trebuchet, it actually managed to do some good work. And unfortunately I don't find a full Powder Keg build, but the Trebuchet with the Darkstone Engine is definitely enough. And that is one example of a Trebuchet Powder Keg combined build. Now next up I have another Saurosid Jellyfish with the Beach Ball, but things will change up very quickly. As you can see, early game, this build is fantastic and it will definitely get you through the early mid game. I end up picking up a Incendiary Rounds because I want to go for Powder Keg, and then I find a Blunderbuss, which charges every time you burn, which is something we want to do. As you can see, I still have a Powder Keg in the wings, and I get C4 for heated shells. This means I want to start using ammo items like Revolver, which is a great weapon for Trebuchet, but with the heated shells it will also burn, which is great for the Saurosid and now also for the Blunderbuss. Now I end up fighting the Dragon, which has an incredible skill for this build. I almost end up dying, I just barely survive, but I do end up getting the skill, which gives my items 9 burn every time I use a medium item, and Blunderbuss goes so often. As you can see in this fight, we do start off quite slow, but our burn ramps up incredibly. Combine that with a nice little Powder Keg, and we have plenty of damage to kill anyone. Now, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go full powder keg, but I did lose the next fight. And I do have an obsidian enchantment from the expedition, so I do end up putting it on the powder keg and getting rid of the trebuchet, going for a full powder keg build, but with the blunderbuss, which is actually still doing amazing. And with the obsidian keg and the incredible speed of this build, we end up destroying every opponent we have and getting our 10-win victory. So with this knowledge, you should have everything you need to once again become a mid-game powerhouse that all of the other heroes fear. If you like this video, I appreciate it if you can like and subscribe. These videos do take a while to make, so let me know what parts you liked or disliked so I can make the next video even better. Next video should be about top legend Vanessa players and how they can maintain an 80% 10 win rate so consistently. See you there!